My name is Alexandra Morgan. I'm 31 years old, an architect based in Chicago. And after 12 years of working double shifts, skipping vacations, and eating more ramen than I care to admit, I finally bought my first home. But instead of a housewarming card, I got a lawsuit from my own parents. They didn't call to say congratulations. They didn't ask for a tour. They sent me a court summons, claiming I stole a house that should have been my brother's birthright. And as if that betrayal wasn't enough, what I discovered during the legal battle, emails, bank records, even a scholarship I was secretly sabotaged from getting in high school. This wasn't just about a house. This was years of control, favoritism, and buried lies exploding all at once. If you've ever fought for something you earned, only to have family try to take it away. Or if you've been told your whole life that your worth depends on keeping quiet and staying small. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about property. It's about reclaiming your life. One brick, one paycheck, and one courtroom verdict at a time. If this kind of story resonates with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter. Let's begin. I thought it was junk mail, until I read the first line. Plaintiffs, Richard Morgan and Diane Morgan. The envelope had been wedged between a grocery store flyer and a coupon booklet, the kind of clutter that usually went straight into my recycling bin. But something about the weight of the envelope, thicker, more formal, made me pause. The second I saw my parents' names in bold, all-caps legal font, my stomach dropped. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Or maybe a prank. Some scammer phishing for identity information. But as I flipped through the stapled pages, reading words like civil action, plaintiffs, and property dispute, my breath caught in my throat. My parents were suing me for buying a house. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the mattress creaking under me. The late afternoon light slanted through the blinds, making stripes across the half-unpacked boxes scattered around my small studio apartment. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor, screen up like it was staring back at me, waiting for me to do something. 12 years. That's how long I'd been clawing my way toward independence. 12 years of double shifts, student loans, cold leftovers, and secondhand furniture. And now, this. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and dialed Zoe. It rang twice before she picked up. Hey, you okay? You never call at this hour. Zoe, I got something. I think you need to come over. There was a pause. What's going on? I can't explain it over the phone. Just, please, can you come? I'm on my way. While I waited, I paced the small rectangle of open floor between my bed and the kitchenette, rereading the document, searching for some line that would reveal this as a misunderstanding. But there it was, plain as day. Plaintiffs, Richard Morgan and Diane Morgan. Defendant, Alexandra Morgan. Cause, alleged wrongful acquisition of family property. Family property? What the hell were they talking about? I hadn't taken anything from them. Every dollar that went into my down payment had been mine. Earned, saved, sacrificed for. My gaze drifted toward the half-empty boxes stacked by the door. Just last week, I'd started packing for the move. My first real home. Not a rental. Not a roommate situation. My own space, for once. Now it felt like the walls were closing in. A sharp knock at the door jolted me. I rushed over and opened it. Zoe stood there, windblown, still wearing her social work badge from the community center. What's going on? She asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I handed her the papers. Her eyes scanned the first page. Oh my God, are you serious? I nodded, too numb to speak. Zoe flipped through the rest, her brows pulling tight. They're suing you over your house? I don't even understand why, I said, sinking to the floor. I found it through my agent. It was a normal sale. No family connection, no strings, nothing. Zoe's gaze softened. She sat down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. Alex, this isn't just about the house, it's them. This is years of their crap bubbling up. I squeezed my eyes shut, and without meaning to, my mind rewound to moments I'd spent years trying to forget. My 7th birthday, the purple bike that used to belong to a neighbor's daughter. Jason's 4th birthday, brand new bike, training wheels, helmet, streamers on the handlebars. The school band tryouts I couldn't attend because renting an instrument costs too much. But Jason's hockey gear? Brand new every season. The college fund that never existed for me. The late night shifts, the ramen dinners, the way my father's voice still echoed in my head. Real life isn't as easy as you think, Alexandra. Somewhere between memories, my phone vibrated again. It was my mother. For a second, I hesitated. Then I answered. Mom? Her voice was low, hesitant. You got the papers. Yeah, I breathed. I got them. There was a pause. I thought the lawsuit was the worst part, until Melissa pulled out an email from 2010 with my father's name on it. Rain tapped against Melissa's office window, soft but relentless. The air smelled like old books and coffee, and I sat frozen on the worn leather chair, staring at the printed email in front of me. My mind couldn't seem to process the words. Kayla, Melissa's paralegal, stood near the door, shifting nervously. We pulled this from the school district's archives, she said quietly. It took some digging. I scanned the top of the page again. My father's name sat bold in the email header like a slap to the face. The date, March 2010. The subject, regarding Alexandra Morgan, scholarship consideration. My heart thudded as I read the body. To whom it may concern. While Alexandra is a bright student, we have concerns about her emotional stability and long-term commitment to academic programs. For her well-being and the school's reputation, we recommend caution in considering her for leadership-based scholarships. Best regards, Richard Morgan. I dropped the paper, hands trembling. Zoe, sitting beside me, snatched it up next. Her eyes darkened as she read. He sabotaged you, she said, voice low and sharp. Senior year. This was right before they announced the scholarship winners. The cafeteria flashed back in my mind. Me sitting alone at the corner table, tears burning behind my eyes as other students celebrated their awards. I had blamed myself all these years. Thought I hadn't worked hard enough. Thought maybe I just wasn't good enough. Melissa slid another folder across the desk. That's not all. Inside were banking records, transfer slips, pages and pages of transactions. My name appeared at the top of one account. A college fund opened when I was 10. The statement showed steady deposits for years. And then, around 2011, a sudden, unexplained transfer. I flipped through the pages, each line item like a punch to the gut. The money that should have helped me go to college had been rerouted into Jason's education fund. They took it, I whispered. They took my college money. Zoe cursed again, squeezing my shoulder. They've been rewriting your story for years. I could barely breathe. The room seemed to tilt. I pressed my palms against the desk to steady myself, but the anger rising in my chest burned hotter than the panic. This ends now, I said, my voice low but steady. Melissa smiled, though her eyes stayed serious. That's the attitude I like to see. First step, we build a timeline. Every job you've had since you were 19, every paycheck stub, every tax return, every rent payment. We'll show the court exactly how you paid for that house. For the next hour, I sat with Kayla, going through old bank statements, W-2s, and even faded paycheck stubs from coffee shops and late-night retail jobs. Every entry felt like reclaiming a piece of my own life. By the time I left Melissa's office, my backpack was stuffed with folders and lists of tasks. The rain had eased to a mist, but the chill in the air stayed sharp. Zoe waited with an umbrella, her arm hooked through mine as we made our way to her car. As I buckled my seatbelt, my phone buzzed. A text from Jason. We need to talk. Just us. I stared at the screen, heart pounding all over again. I didn't know if Jason wanted to apologize or warn me. The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and rain-soaked pavement. I picked the corner booth, facing the door, heart pounding as I watched the entrance like a hawk. Every time the door swung open, a cold draft cut through the room, making me flinch. Jason showed up 10 minutes late, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His dark circles stood out against skin that seemed paler than usual. His jacket hung loose on his frame, like he'd lost weight recently. He didn't order coffee. Didn't even sit right away. Just stood there awkwardly, holding a manila envelope in both hands like it weighed 50 pounds. "I almost didn't come," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Then why did you?" He exhaled, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to warm them. "Because this has gone too far." Without another word, he pushed the envelope toward me across the table. My hands hesitated before picking it up. Inside were photocopies of handwritten notes, pages filled with my father's familiar, blocky handwriting. At the top of the first page, Morgan Family Legacy Plan. I flipped through them, each line making my stomach twist tighter. Target property, Maple Street. Goal, return family legacy to rightful heir, Jason. Action plan, monitor ownership, establish prearranged purchase agreement with existing owner's son. I stopped breathing for a second. "He's been tracking the house? For years?" Jason nodded, eyes downcast. "Had some handshake deal with the previous owner's kid. Said he'd be notified if the house ever went on the market. But Dad missed the notification. And when he found out you bought it, he lost it." I finished for him, my voice flat. Jason looked at me then, eyes full of something close to shame. "Yeah, he's convinced you did it on purpose. To spite him, to humiliate the family." I shook my head, laughing bitterly. "I didn't even know it was our grandparents' house when I made the offer." Jason swallowed hard. "I know." My throat burned as I flipped to the next page. More scribbled notes, calculations about property value, timelines, mentions of Jason inheriting the family asset. My name appeared only twice, both times underlined with phrases like risk factor and unpredictable variable. My heart clenched. "So this was never about me. It was always about you." Jason's shoulders sagged. "Yeah, but that's not the worst part." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded, yellowed letter. The paper looked brittle at the edges, like it had been handled too many times. "I found this in Dad's desk drawer," he said quietly. "It's from Grandma Eleanor, addressed to you, dated just a few weeks before she passed." My fingers shook as I unfolded it. "Dear Alexandra, I hope this letter finds you strong and dreaming big. I want you to know you are more capable than they'll ever admit. Don't let anyone, not even family, make you feel small. Build your life, Alex, on your terms. Love always, Grandma Eleanor." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The noise of the coffee shop blurred, voices and dishes and espresso machines all fading into a distant hum. The tears came fast, hot and angry. Jason's voice pulled me back. "Dad never meant for you to get that letter. I'm sorry." I looked up at him, and for the first time in years, I saw something real. Genuine guilt, breaking through years of sibling rivalry and parental manipulation. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. "Melissa," I answered, voice shaky. "Hello?" Her tone was clipped, urgent. "Alexandra, your parents just hired Lawrence Bennett." I froze. Even Jason's expression changed at the name. "One of the top property litigation lawyers in the state," Melissa continued. "We need to move fast." I hung up slowly, my pulse racing. Jason stared at me across the table, waiting. "What now?" he asked. I met his eyes, letting the fire rise in my chest. "Now, we fight." I never thought I'd sit on a defendant's bench, with my own parents glaring at me from the other side. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disinfectant. Fluorescent lights flickered above, casting a pale, sickly glow over everything. I sat rigidly beside Melissa, my palms sweating against the cool surface of the defense table. Jason sat in the back row, head bowed, staring at his hands. Judge Patricia Harris entered promptly at 9 a.m., her black robe flowing behind her like a shadow. The bailiff called the court to order, and the low murmur of voices fell into a heavy silence. Lawrence Bennett stood first. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and perfectly modulated voice radiated authority. "Your Honor," he began, turning toward the empty jury box even though this was a bench trial. "This is not merely about property. It's about family, about betrayal, about a daughter who manipulated her way into taking something that was never meant for her." I clenched my fists under the table. Bennett's opening statement painted me as a calculating opportunist, ungrateful, selfish. A daughter who, despite years of support and love, had gone behind her family's back to steal a house that was part of the Morgan legacy. His words came carefully measured, each one like a blade sharpened for emotional impact. I kept my face neutral, but inside my chest burned. When Bennett finally sat down, Judge Harris nodded toward him. "Call your first witness." My father rose from his seat, adjusting his tie like he was giving a quarterly earnings report. Richard Morgan took the stand, placing his hand on the Bible with practiced ease. After being sworn in, he settled back, his voice steady. "I've always tried to support both my children," he said with faux sincerity. "But Alexandra, she's always had a rebellious streak. She's pushed back against family unity at every turn." Melissa scribbled notes beside me, her pen moving furiously. Bennett began his questioning. "Would you describe your relationship with your daughter as close, Mr. Morgan?" My father smiled, an expression I recognized as pure performance. "It's had its ups and downs like any family, but we've always tried to provide her with opportunities." "And when did you learn that she had purchased the Maple Street property?" His jaw tightened slightly. "When it was too late." "And how did that make you feel?" There it was, the rehearsed sigh, the lowering of eyes. Betrayed, heartbroken, that house holds deep sentimental value for our family. We had always intended for Jason to own it. It's part of our family history. Bennett let the words hang in the air before moving on. "Did you provide Alexandra with any financial support over the years?" My stomach twisted. "We would have helped more if she had just asked properly," my father said, adjusting his tie again. Melissa stood, smoothing her blazer as she approached the podium. "Mr. Morgan," she began, her tone cool and deliberate, "can you provide this court with any documentation, any at all, that shows financial support given to Alexandra since she turned 19? My father hesitated. "We offered emotional support." That wasn't the question. Melissa's voice sharpened. "I'm asking about tangible financial support. Bank transfers, tuition payments, rent assistance, anything." He shifted uncomfortably. "Families don't always operate with paperwork, Ms. Turner." "But courts do," she shot back without missing a beat. Jason sat frozen in the back, jaw clenched, his fists tight in his lap. I caught his eye for just a second, and there was something there. Something like sympathy. Or regret. Melissa continued pressing, her questions slicing through my father's vague answers like a scalpel. By the time she returned to her seat, the carefully crafted narrative my parents had constructed was already showing cracks. Judge Harris called a brief recess. As the courtroom emptied, Melissa leaned close to me, her voice low but fierce. "Tomorrow," she said, her eyes glinting with determination, "we present the email and the scholarship theft." I nodded, a flicker of hope lighting somewhere deep in my chest. I walked into the courtroom that morning knowing we weren't just fighting for a house. We were fighting for the truth. The air in courtroom 4B felt denser than before. As I sat down next to Melissa, I caught Jason slipping quietly into the back row. His face was pale, but his expression was resolute. Judge Harris entered right on time. The bailiff called us to order. Melissa stood immediately. "Your Honor, the defense has new evidence pertaining to both the financial history between the parties and the defendant's educational opportunities." Kayla approached the bench with a stack of papers. Judge Harris adjusted her glasses and nodded for Melissa to proceed. These are email correspondences from 2010, Melissa began, between Mr. Richard Morgan and Alexandra's high school guidance counselor. In these emails, Mr. Morgan discouraged the counselor from nominating Alexandra for any leadership or merit-based scholarships. He cited emotional instability as justification. Whispers echoed through the courtroom. My heart pounded as the judge flipped through the emails. Melissa didn't pause. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have documentation from the trustee of the Eleanor Sullivan Education Trust Fund. This fund was intended for both children. However, 100% of the disbursements went to Jason Morgan. Alexandra received none. Gasps followed from the small audience section. Jason shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. Melissa turned to me. Ms. Morgan, please take the stand. I rose, my legs shaking, but my voice steady as I was sworn in. Ms. Morgan, Melissa started, how have you supported yourself since the age of 19? I've worked nonstop, I answered, listing off my jobs: barista, retail associate, waitress, freelance designer. I paid for my education, rent, utilities, food, everything on my own. Melissa nodded. And did your parents provide any financial support during that time? No, I said clearly. Did you know about the Education Trust Fund? Not until now. A tense silence filled the room. Melissa turned. Your Honor, the defense calls Jason Morgan. Gasps again. My parents turned to stare at him as he stood, shoulders squared but face tight with anxiety. After being sworn in, Jason spoke. My father lied. He's been manipulating this family for years. He made me believe Alex was unstable, that she didn't deserve help. I never knew about the trust fund until now, but I knew about the house plans. Dad's been obsessed with it for years. Melissa handed Judge Harris one last document, the unopened letter from my grandmother. Your Honor, she said softly, this letter was written to Alexandra shortly before Eleanor Sullivan's death. It was hidden by Mr. Morgan, with the court's permission. Judge Harris gestured for her to continue. Melissa unfolded the yellowed paper and read aloud. Dear Alexandra, I hope this letter finds you strong and dreaming big. You are more capable than they'll ever admit. Don't let anyone, not even family, make you feel small. Build your life, Alex, on your terms. Love always, Grandma Eleanor. Silence settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Judge Harris set down the letter and looked at my parents with an unreadable expression. This isn't about property, she said slowly. This is about control. The room stayed silent as she stood. I will deliver my ruling tomorrow morning. And with that, the courtroom emptied, leaving me with a mix of dread and hope. I stood on the courthouse steps, breathing air that felt lighter than it had in years. The morning sun broke through the Chicago haze, casting long shadows across the stone pavement beneath my feet. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the breeze brush across my skin, as if trying to memorize what freedom felt like. Inside, the courtroom had already begun to empty. Judge Harris had ruled swiftly and unequivocally. The house, my house, remained mine. Full ownership. No compensation owed, no transfer of deed, just mine. I replayed her words in my mind, each sentence a balm on wounds I didn't realize I was still carrying. This court finds no legal merit in the plaintiff's claims, she'd said, voice steady and final. The defendant purchased the property through lawful means with independently earned funds. Furthermore, the court reprimands the plaintiffs for misuse of the legal system to pursue a personal vendetta. When those words landed, I'd barely registered the collective gasp from the gallery. My father's reaction was instant and violent in its energy. He shot up from his seat, face red, fist clenched at his side. This isn't over, Alexandra, he shouted, his voice echoing off the wood-paneled walls. The bailiff stepped forward, but Judge Harris lifted a hand. Mr. Morgan, I advise you to leave this courtroom, now, before I find cause for contempt. My mother sat motionless, tears streaking down her face, her gaze fixed on the floor as if staring at something she could never fix. Jason had stood too, but for a different reason. For the first time in my life, he spoke words I never expected to hear from him. "I stand with my sister," he'd said, loud enough for everyone to hear. And now, here we were, on the courthouse steps, the city buzzing around us like none of this had happened. Melissa stood beside me, tucking her folders under one arm, sunglasses perched on her nose like she'd just finished another routine case. But I saw the faint smile tugging at her lips. Jason approached cautiously, hands in his pockets. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "More than okay." We didn't say much more. There wasn't much left that needed saying. For now. Melissa pulled her car keys from her bag. "Call me if they try anything else," she said. "But I don't think they will. Not after today." I watched as she disappeared into the parking lot, leaving Jason and me standing there. Two siblings untangling years of false narratives with a few awkward silences and small smiles. Later that evening, back at the house, I stood in my living room. Paint swatches still taped to the wall from months ago. The space felt different somehow. Not just because of the ruling, but because for the first time it felt fully mine. I opened the closet, pulling out the small terracotta pot Zoe had given me the night I closed on the house. The plant had grown, vines curling along the window frame like they too had been waiting for this day. Grabbing a brush, I dipped it into a fresh can of paint, a soft, warm shade of blue. As I dragged the first stroke across the wall, I let out a slow, deliberate breath. This wasn't just paint. It was the first mark of a new chapter. The courtroom battle was over, but the scars of betrayal would linger far longer than the verdict itself. Years of silent sabotage, favoritism, and manipulation had unraveled under the weight of undeniable evidence. Justice, though delayed, had arrived with the force of a long-withheld truth finally spoken aloud. Like fresh paint on old walls, the ruling didn't erase the past, but it marked the beginning of something new. Because when injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime.